Hey, this is Grant's Rock Warehouse, and welcome to another episode of, well, this is the first episode, but this is the first episode of the British invasion. So, what we're looking at is, as everyone knows, there were two, well, you don't know. There was one British invasion in the 60s. That's where you got the Beatles, you've got like the Hollies, you've got the Kinks, all those British bands that flooded the shores after the Beatles came to our shores. Well, there was also another British invasion, and that was in the 80s. Though you may not have thought about it or really heard about it in a long time, but it's true. In fact, Rolling Stone back in the day ran an article on it. So there was another British invasion, and it was pretty much, shall we say, I think it all began when Duran Duran hit. I think when Rio or maybe Girls Like Film, when those tracks hit, all of a sudden we had a whole plethora of British bands that started flooding to our shores. So you had like Thompson Twins, Howard Jones, a Flock of Seagulls. There were a slew of them. So what I had my panel here today do is come up with three of their favorite albums of that era. So who I have today, I have Todd Evans. You've seen Todd on the Contrarians. You've seen him on my show. You've seen him on Ryan's Vinyl Destination. John Clauser, you've seen him on the Contrarians. My channel. John's got his own channel. Tell me what it is, John.
My Music Corner.
My Music Corner. And expect to see more content there. I can just tell that John is just gearing up for this metal episode. I wonder what it is, but I can see it coming. Ryan Gavalier for Ryan's Vinyl Destination. That's him right there. No beard this time. And John the Music Nut. You've seen him on the Contrarians on Ryan's channel. John's everywhere. He's just like a machine. But anyway, I've had this panel drawn together. We're going to look at our favorite three records. And if anybody's watching, which I don't know if they are, oh, someone's watching, you can feel free to jump in, give us your picks, make a comment, and, we'll take some questions. So let's do this. Let's go clockwise. So I'm going to go Todd, John, Ryan, and then John. We may have another one join. Who knows? So if we do, we'll put him after John the Music Nut. So Todd, let's go. Let's hear your. Let's see. Let's just do our first. Okay, let's decide democratically here. Do you want to give all your three picks, or do we just want to do like our third pick go around, our second pick go around, and third pick go around? I'll let whatever you guys want to do. What do you think?
I think round robin would be fun.
All right, let's just do our number threes.
Hey, and can we do honorable mentions after we get through? Because I have a couple.
We'll do all of our 1, 2, 3, and then we'll do honorable mentions. We'll just keep going around.
Okay.
Sound good?
So I'm just going to do one, right?
Yeah, do your number three.
Okay.
And then if we get questions, I'll try to bring in the questions in between people. We'll just kind of mix them in. We'll do it like we always do. We'll just kind of wing it. So anyway, Todd Evans is going to go first. And Todd, let's hear your number three.
Okay, my number three, there's a band from England called ABC, and they started out as a production of Trevor Horn with a lot of orchestration and really lush things happening. But the album that everyone needs to know about with ABC is this one right here, Beauty Stab. Okay, Beauty Stab was their second album, and it's a complete departure from the one before. Not a complete departure. There's some signature elements that are still there. There's still some keyboards. There's still, some orchestration. But this is ABC in the studio looking a little bit more rock and roll, a little bit more Roxy Music. In fact, this album was compared to Roxy Music when it came out. It was also kind of a flop. It had a lead single that was Then This Is Now that got some attention, but nowhere near what it got. What the Lights Kind of Love got. But this record is heavy. It's guitar oriented. It has more guitar on it than any other ABC album, and it is like I said, it was compared to Roxy Music at the time, but it's like a really edgy Roxy Music, and it's hard to convince anybody who hasn't heard it that ABC made a heavy record, but they did, and it's really a unique record, and there's great tracks on here. Love's a Dangerous Language. If I ever thought you'd be lonely, The Power of Persuasion. There's a song on here that's just Martin Fry's voice and an orchestra called By Default by Design, which is just a really remarkable track. And to this day, once every couple of weeks, it gets stuck in my head and stays there for a day. It's just really brilliant. And the drummer on this album is Andy Newmark, because their original drummer David Palmer had gone off to do some other things, and so Andy Newmark has played with. He plays on one song on the Final Cut by Pink Floyd. He's played on two David Gilmour albums. He's played with a whole bunch of people, and so this record has a lot of energy, and that's where part of where it gets its heaviness from is Andy Newmark. And one of the things this is such a good Andy Newmark example of his playing that I think it might be the quintessential Andy Newmark performance. I mean, it's that good. So that's my number 3, ABC Beauty Stab. If you have a chance to stream this and try it out, definitely do that. Just so you can hear what I'm talking about. And if you see it for $1, definitely pick it up.
Excellent, Todd. I love it that you mentioned that record, because that record virtually gets no love at all anymore. In fact, it didn't get much love when it came out.
It's never gotten any love.
There was a podcast that I saw the other day that had Martin Fry on it. And ABC's getting ready to do a tour in the UK in celebration of Lexicon of Love. Like, what would that be? The 40th anniversary, I think? That would be about right. He didn't mention Beauty Stab at all.
Yeah, nobody ever does. And it's funny, the album that came out after that was How to Be a Zillionaire, How to Be a Millionaire, whatever it's called. It is like complete opposite, completely electronic drums, hardly any guitar. And it did better than Beauty Stab. And then the album after that was Alphabet City, and that was a complete return to Lexicon of Love territory. And after that, they have a house music record. They've tried all of these things, and hardly any of them stuck. But ABC Beauty Stab is definitely a bold album. I mean, really brave.
That's a great pick. Great pick. John, what do you have?
Rock and roll. Okay. So it's interesting when I think about this time period, because I was getting into MTV, really was big at the time and where I was around. And even though I liked a lot of hard rock and heavy metal, a lot of these bands kind of they just kind of wanted to creep in. And I'm like, there's some really solid stuff here, even though maybe they're not very guitar heavy, or they're not really heavy songs like you would think. So one of those bands that kind of made an impact on me was, and this is a dark album cover to really see, The Fix. With their debut album, Shuttered Room. This album, I just hear so many great little bits and pieces of just really deep lyrics, good solid musicianship. Of course, you have the two of their biggest songs, Stand or Fall, and the ever classic Red Skies at Night, which is just, to me, is probably one of my favorite Fix songs. I absolutely love that song. But I've really kind of gotten in touch with this album a lot more over, I don't know, maybe the last few years or whatever. So kind of listening more to some of this other album, the kickoff track, I Found You, just a really strong kickoff song, just a good punchy track. The title song, Shuttered Room, kind of reminds me of there's a song on Men at Work's Business as Usual it reminds me of. It's Automation, I think is the song. Kind of reminds me of that. It has that kind of punchy guitar keyboard line and very fast and almost kind of lyrically kind of sounds like that. The Fool, nice closing epic song. Cameras in Paris has a kind of a strange little keyboard line, but it's kind of a catchy little punchy tune. I've always kind of liked the early Fix. I really kind of lost touch with them early on, like probably after the Reach the Beach album. I really never listened to much after that. I know they've got quite a lot of stuff out there, but just for Red Skies at Night and Stand or Fall, this album's worth the price of admission. So I'm going with the Fix.
Great one.
Those guys.
Davey, there's like two of you in here.
Oh, I
Now
only
they
see
can
one
one.
now.
Now I see one. Can you hear us over here? Okay, Davey?
Yeah, that's my twin. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Welcome aboard. Nice to see you.
Presuming that's you talking, then yeah.
It's me.
But,
Trust me. Yeah, you're not moving very fast.
I don't know what's going. So, click a link. I can't even do that. I can't even do that.
Must
Hey,
be
Well, that's
Sean.
nothing new.
Go ahead, Ryan.
But
Anyway, Ryan.
So actually, I met the Fix. They came into the record store I work at because they were playing
Nice.
across the street at Kent Stage. Really nice guys.
Cool.
It was
And
a
Jamie
cool
Jamie
choice.
West-Oram is a really good guitar player. Really does not get enough notice. Cy Curran, he's got a good voice and really good lyrics. And just those guys just really put it together. I just really always thought those guys were really good. So
They're really tight band too. They can really
Yes.
play.
yes, they do. Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
And they were actually with one of the women who were on the front of Country Life by Roxy Music. She was with them.
That's right.
It was pretty nuts. Like she was there with them too. It was pretty cool.
That's crazy.
I
Chris-
agree, and I agree with Chris Stokes up here. That keyboard guitar solo on Red Sky, classic.
But the sound, you know what I like about that whole record, though? I love the production on it. I mean, the guitar sound on that record is just absolutely killer. And it's real strong. I mean, I think that's the first album, right?
It is the first album, yeah.
Yeah. Such a great record.
Yep.
I picked that up not too long ago for not much money. Believe it or not. But I never see any Fix when you go out. in
Oh,
the
it's not
wild.
easy to find
It's
at all.
not. No.
And I think their first 4 records are all really good. But yeah, I don't see them on vinyl, especially.
Yeah, if
hard to
anybody
come by.
watching, you should always try to pick up the Fix if you see it. That's
We
all
get
I'm
them
saying.
in decent amount at the record store, honestly.
Do you really?
We had a ton of them there when they came in. It was pretty cool. Yeah, we get them in kind of frequently.
I'll be damned. All right, awesome. Excellent pick, John. Excellent pick. Ryan, you're up.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trying to pick 3 really great British new wave albums was kind of hard because I mean there's so many great bands from this time, so I had to go with 3 big kahunas for me. My number 3 pick is going to be Rio by Duran Duran.
Excellent pick.
You know, it's the big guy. It really is, and I just love everything about this album. I love the harmonies. I love the synthesizer parts. The synth sound on this album is so good, and it's real heavy synths too, which I love. Good guitar on the album, just awesome hooks and songwriting. I mean, songs like Hungry Like the Wolf, that's such a catchy song. It's like, it is unforgettable, those little do-do-do-do's and stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, the song Rio is a classic. I love side 2, actually. That's my favorite side of this record, personally. But, like, New Religion, which is such a good, dark sounding song. Lots of great synths on there. My favorite track on this album is probably Save a Prayer. That's so fantastic. And, yeah, it's a classic. I mean, top-notch songwriting. I don't understand why the critics didn't get this band as they were blowing up. I've looked at some of the reviews at the time that it came out, and they were kind of a little bit lukewarm, not like negative, but they definitely weren't positive reviews either. And I just don't get it. I think Duran Duran's top notch, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a few albums by them I thought about talking about today, and maybe they'll make it to honorable mentions, but this is the one that ended up making making the list for me.
Excellent choice. Well, the thing about Duran Duran, because I remember when it came out, and I'll maybe touch on it later. We'll see. You never know. But don't forget, when they came out, they were almost thought of as like a teeny bopper band. I mean, tons of girls liked them. When I saw them on the Rage 7 and the Rage Tiger tour, it was up in Cleveland, and it was just jam-packed full with young girls just screaming. It was... So I think maybe as time has progressed, Duran Duran may be thought of more favorably now than when they were back in the 80s. Because seriously, they were like in Tiger Beat. They were in all those teen mags all over the place. So I think that probably hurt them. But I could listen all through it. I knew there was much more to it than just that teeny bopper thing. You know?
When I was in, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you go first.
Whoever.
I was going to say, when I was in college, I was in a band and we played Rio. And let me tell you, it was a disaster. If you don't think Duran Duran can play, try playing Rio. I remember we had to keep stopping and going back and listening to the record. And I remember at one point the drummer said, "It doesn't sound like a train wreck when they play it." I mean, it's really challenging music, especially that song.
No, absolutely. And I mean, as I was kind of getting to also, I think a thing that sets them on a different kind of like level too is just how atmospheric some of those songs could be. Like they could write really great pop songs, but they were more than just a pop band. I mean, even with all the synths and stuff, they had some really dark songs, or like at least really melancholy feeling ones. And it just, I don't know. I think that they were a lot more top notch of a band than they got credit for at first, and I think people are starting to come around to it now.
I mean, think about how great a keyboardist Nick Rhodes is, just right out of the gate, and he was young. I mean, he just turned 60, so.
But he's got such a unique sound. When you listen to those Duran Duran albums, I mean, it's primarily, it's pretty much Nick's keyboard sound that really. No, I take that back. But Andy Taylor's guitar too has a lot to do with it.
And John Taylor was.
And John Taylor,
again,
I think it's the
great
whole
bass player right out of the gate.
It's the whole band as a whole. It's one of those situations where you bring everybody together and there's just magic. And when you're talking about that whole sound of Rio album, I kind of look at the first album and Rio kind of like record 1 and record 2 because they both still have that type of tonality. Do you know what I mean? I think it was the same producer that produced both of them, but both of those records, and they never sounded like that again.
I think 7 and the Ragged Tiger sounds a little bit like those two.
I'll tell you, I found
and then they lost their drummer. I mean, and then they streamlined and had session players.
Yeah, I don't. Just one of those things. I don't know. But Ryan, that was a great pick.
Thank you.
It all started with the Duran Duran, I think. Of course, when we get to Davy, we'll find out from the UK connection. You know, I don't know. They were probably already big over there and happening before they even got here. All right, John, you're up. What you got?
Okay, thanks a lot, guys.
Nice seeing you.
And great seeing you too. Great seeing all of you. Welcome, Davy. Good to meet you.
He's frozen.
Oh, he's frozen again. Okay.
Well, I guess
he will thaw.
maybe he
out
can
eventually.
talk. I don't know.
Even going to be able to hear me. It's tonight.
Yeah.
So before I get into my number 3 pick, I just want to give some more love out.
It's the storm, rain. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you. You're just kind of frozen.
Yeah, you're like on delay.
Although
There you
that
go.
face
That's a
right
good
now is
shot.
perfect.
All right, there's a real bad storm outside. Sorry, I must be late.
Oh,
Oh,
we lost
just
him.
lost him.
all right.
Okay.
Go ahead,
John,
John.
go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just want to give more love for the Fix. I just saw them last fall.
Nice.
Fantastic. They still have the same lineup from the Reach to Beach album.
Yep.
They replaced bass players during the recording of Reach to Beach. Same lineup. Cy Kernan sounds like like he did in 1983.
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Yep. They
It's
don't
really
age. They're insane live. I mean, definitely go to see them. They are to this day a fantastic live band, and they hit their whole catalog. Even the stuff that was released later, it didn't sell. It sounds perfect within the set.
Cool.
Yes, definitely go to see them. They just come out. They don't talk much. When Cy talks, I mean, he knows how to capture the audience's attention, but they don't mess around. He talks once in a while, and then they just let the music do the talking. Fantastic live band.
Yeah.
Highly
Nothing wrong with
recommend.
that. Nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. So for my third pick,
Yeah.
and this is going to be one of two picks that I talk about today where they made an album recently after a long hiatus. Now, this band is considered more of a post-punk band, and they went through a few different producers. They had a sound all their own, though, and they never quite broke through, I should say, in the UK or the US. I mean, they had a lot of they had popular songs, but they didn't have big hits. But this is another band you should definitely go to see live too, because they're still great, but they only have 2 original members left. But anyway, my number 3 is the Psychedelic Furs. And the album
I thought that's where you were going.
I'm glad you read my mind, Todd. The album's called Forever Now. Okay?
Great record. That is a great record.
It certainly is. Produced by Upper Darby, Pennsylvania's favorite son, Todd Rundgren.
Yep.
What a wonderful album. Honestly, I could say what a wonderful album about the first 4. But this is when they started really going new wave. Grant, are you about to say something?
No, but that's the UK cover for anyone viewing that. That's not the US cover. When they've re-released and remastered, they use the UK cover for that.
Oh, okay.
But there you go. Just a little,
Very good. Anyway, great album. This is more new wave. This is why I picked it, because it's more of a new wave album than those first 2, which are excellent as well. Love My Way was their first really popular song. Oh, there we go.
There you go. There it is.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Sorry, carry on.
No, it's all good. No, that adds to the conversation. It's wonderful. Love
what
My
it's
Way. Yes, sir. Love My Way was their first really popular song.
Huge.
It didn't quite hit the top 40, but it endured so well. It's a new wave classic now. You have some songs from the new wave era that weren't really big hits, but they just stuck with you, and now you still hear them. And Love My Way is one of those songs. So many other great songs on here. What really distinguished them from a lot of bands of that era was their sax playing. Only You and I, Sleep Comes Down are great songs. When they go moody and mid-tempo, they shine like the sun. President Gas rocks like hell. That song is dance rock. It kicks ass. Great track. No Easy Street, which is a somber, very dramatic song. Beautiful sax work on that as well. That's my favorite track on the album. But Danger, Run and Run, Goodbye is awesome. Goodbye is a fantastic track. That's probably my second favorite. And Love My Way would be my third, but I can highly recommend this album to anyone who loves the second British invasion. It's my number 3.
Solid.
Great pick.
Yeah, and I would go so far as to say that they might be better now live than they ever were. 2 of the people in their current band are from the lineup. They've had so many lineups from the lineup of Midnight to Midnight, which is their fifth album, I think. The sax
Yep.
player and the drummer are the same guy. So
We're not-
there's some old people still in there, even though they're not original.
Todd, when did you see them?
I saw them. Gosh, you know what? It has been long enough now that I probably can't really say that with any authority. I think it was in 2011 or 2012.
Okay.
When you get
because-
older, 10 years seems like a year. So,
That's
Right.
right. It could have been like 2 years ago.
but
I
their
thought it
album
was-
is good. Their album that came out last year or 2 years ago is really good. It's like
Made of Rain.
yeah, it's like they took a long time off, and it's like they didn't take any time off. It's really good.
The new lineup has the two brothers.
Yeah,
The new lineup has the two brothers and some other guys, but they sounded magnificent when I saw them, and definitely Made of Rain, great album, 2021. I think all their albums are very good.
me too.
Yeah, I don't think they didn't really slip much at all, even on the later albums. They like Book of Days. I mean, that album was still pretty good.
It's a
Yeah.
good choice.
Thank you.
All right, I get to. Well, my number 3 is Thompson Twins, Into the Gap. Look at this. I even got an original with the hype sticker still on it.
I cannot find one of those.
You know, back in the day, you saw a lot of Thompson Twins. Actually, this you could buy all day in the dollar bins in the 90s. It was just flooded. But this is my number 3. This came out February 1984. And this definitely has to be their best record. They released like 5 singles off of this. Hold Me Now, Doctor, Doctor, You Take Me Up, Sisters of Mercy, and The Gap. The Gap, I believe, was only released here in the States. But what a great song. This whole record, this is definitely a 5-star record. Most of the reviews, well, Smash Hits gave it a 2.5 out of 10, but they're crazy. Rolling Stone gave it 3, but AllMusic gave it 4. I give this a 5-star record. There's nothing weak on it. It still holds up. You would think something that came out when this did would just have horrible production and, may have that horrible 1980s kind of feel to it. But yeah, it's an 80s album. You can tell, but man, the songwriting's great. The playing's great. It's one of those records I can listen to over and over and never get tired of.
That follow up to that was a good album. It didn't have quite the hits that one had, but it was
Yeah,
still a pretty
I
strong
like that
album.
one just as much. Yeah.
I
Here's
don't
the
like
Future
that
Days.
one as much, but I like the one that came before this a lot. Was it Sidekicks?
Yeah.
Sidekicks. I love all the Thompson Twin stuff. And I know Ryan, do you still have that right? Do you still have that Thompson Twins record right there?
Let me grab it real quick.
Yeah. Ryan's got an original UK pressing of a Thompson. I forget which one it is. I think it's a Steve Lillywhite produced one. I'm not sure though. But he's getting it. I want him to show that because I want him. You never see that record anywhere. But it's fabulous. I think that's Steve Lillywhite, isn't it? He probably can't hear me. Is that a Steve Lillywhite production? Because I know that's a combination of, I don't know, someone help me. I know in the States they combine 2 of their first and second records and put
It's
it out
produced-
here.
It's produced by Tom Bailey, John Haid, and Thompson Twins.
Yeah. Show that cover though real quick. Because people around here, if you like the Thompson Twins, you never see that around here. That's
It has a lot of like African inspiration to it with like the drums, and it's like post punk. It's really cool. I think it's a great album, actually.
Yeah, it's good. Davy, can you rally? I don't know. Doesn't look good. Todd, why don't you go? We can follow up with David if he comes back.
Okay. Well, my second choice is something a little bit more obscure, but these guys became popular much later. Everything But
Yeah.
the Girl, Baby the Stars Shine Bright. And this is my favorite one out of all of theirs because it's orchestrated. It's through the whole thing. It's produced by Mike Hedges, and there's an orchestra pretty much on every song. And but the orchestration has a really almost kind of a spooky feel to it. Like I always think it sounds like they're playing outside and the orchestra is outside. It's hard to describe, but the album is just really beautiful and great songwriting. And I like all of their albums, but this one in particular, I heard this when I was in college, and I just went crazy over it. And I think I saw it before I even heard them. I saw it at the campus radio station, and I just thought the look of it was just so fantastic. I was like, I have to find out what that's all about. And Tracy Thorn's voice is so amazing. And if you are on any social media, especially Twitter, she's a great follow on Twitter. Really funny. And her and her husband, Ben Watt, are both on there. And they have conversations with each other. It's amazing. But I absolutely love this record. And I saw them in the States in, gosh, when was it? It was probably 1993 or 1994 or something like that. And they were so good. I remember their drummer that they took on tour was Martin Ditcham, who is the guy that plays with Sade. And the band was just so good. And it was such a great concert. And I just really love that band. And Tracy's still making records, and her records are really good. And Ben Watt also makes albums. I'm not sure why they don't continue as Everything But the Girl, but one of my favorite 80s bands.
Well, I think Tracy, they had a kid, or Tracy had a kid. I'm not sure if they're
Yeah,
married
no,
or
they
not.
had they
So
started
they
a
kind of took
family.
a break.
Yeah,
and
they
then,
started a family. But her last album is came out in 2017. It's called Record, and it is so good. I mean, it is really, really good. So that's my number 2 pick.
It's all right, Davey. We'll get you next time. The record, since you're talking Everything But the Girl, that record you bought, I've recently, not too long ago, found a UK pressing of that CD, the original UK pressing in the frosted sided jewel case.
Yeah, I used to
Like-
have that.
Okay. And I don't know. It
That
was
used to be
like,
the only way you could get it. It wasn't released initially
okay.
in the States on CD.
But I found it in the bin. But I love Everything But the Girl. I have to tell you, my favorite record is the acoustic album.
Oh yeah, that's great.
I mean, that's a combination of like the EPs and I don't know. It was for the American market. It's not really, but boy, oh boy, the singing on that record. I love that acoustic treatment, even though it's not all acoustic.
It's kind of like it's not like Kiss Unplugged, but I thought it was really funny when Kiss Unplugged came out. People were like, "It's not really unplugged; it's just sort of a little bit quieter."
Right.
And that's kind of what that album is like. It's called acoustic, but it's still full band.
The only complaint, I know this is a little off track, the only complaint I have about that record is that Apron Strings is like the live version and there's audience and all that. I would have loved to just heard Apron Strings just acoustically, like the rest of the tracks.
Yeah, my favorite version of that is the one that's on the soundtrack to She's Having a Baby.
Yeah, that's the better version.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love that version.
If we do a soundtrack show, I'm talking about that one.
There you go. Stay tuned for everybody, because Todd Evans on his channel, when he gets it going, will be doing a soundtrack show. So I'm just telling you, get ready.
We'll see.
We'll see. John,
All right. So
What do you have?
I can't really say that my picks here are in any particular order, but they're all strong albums, and I still I just really think all these songs kind of made an impact on me back in the day. So this next one was produced by a guy named Colin Thurston, came out in 1982. And this band, for not having a guitar player in the band, these guys just really made a full sound. and just really impressed the heck out of me. And that leadoff single that I can still, as I still think of that video from the song, and I just watch this singer just yelling this chorus to this song. It still sticks in my head. Still a great song. I'm going with some Talk Talk. The Party's Over, their debut album. This is one I've been really kind of going back and listening to a little bit more. This is atmospheric is another good word for this album. Because one of you guys mentioned atmospheric when talking about an album, and this one that just feels that atmosphere. You know, it's so serious. I thought, man, great vocal by Mark Hollis. Party's Over, the title track, I thought was a good long song. Today, another good song. Candy, it just has that good ending, good album closer. I just think, maybe their biggest hit was on their next album, which no doubt everybody will know that song a little quicker, but I digress. I've been really wanting to get into Talk Talk and their discography a little bit more intense, and this is a great album. One of the things I think I really want to mention about a lot of these new wave bands, they had some great bass players, solid bass players. I mean, Paul Webb on this album, man, he's all over the place. Now, granted, on the Fix, maybe the guy on that first album, Charlie Barnett, he wasn't maybe quite as into it maybe as Dan K. Brown would be when as he joined on. But I mean, John Taylor on Duran Duran, fantastic bass player. That is right, John. It's John that's the guitar player, or the bass player, and Andy's the guitar player, right?
Yes.
Or am I getting it mixed up?
Oh, that's
There's
right.
so many Taylors in the band, I don't even know. Anyway, but there was, Level 42 had Mark, he was really good on bass. I mean, there was just a lot of great bass players.
Martin Kemp from Slam of LA.
Yes, another good one. I mean, that was one thing about these bands. Man, they just had some great all over the place bass players. But man, they stayed within that pocket, and it was just such a tight sound. And I was always impressed with that. Yes, Talk Talk.
Don't forget Mike Craig from Culture Club, killer bass player.
Yes, yeah,
killer. Yeah.
Are we gonna give Davy a shot?
I'm gonna give Davy a shot, and then we'll go to Ryan. It's Storm Davy, and he's sitting in the dark.
Well, can you hear me?
But he's moving, and you can hear him. So.
Yes. So not only am I in the dark, the lights have gone out, but that's helped the Wi-Fi. Explain that to me.
I don't know. You're in Scotland. Hard to say what's going on over there.
I know. I need to wind the sheep up or something. But
Well, anyway, we're on our second one. But go ahead and give us your.
Tell you what, rattle through the ones you've. Don't tell me the album, just the artist, so I know that I'm not repeating something radical.
I don't know. Go ahead and do your pick.
I heard Duran.
Yeah, we can have repeats.
But I heard Duran, Talk Talk,
Thompson Twins, Talk
ABC,
Talk, ABC,
Everything But the
ABC,
Girl.
the Lexicon of
Everything
Love.
But the Girl.
No, I picked Beauty Stab.
Oh, I love ABC. One of Trevor Horn's greatest productions is all throughout ABC. So yeah, apologies, Grant, about the
It's okay. We're just going with it. You're
I can't
all right.
control the weather.
You
Not yet. But hopefully next time I can. So just pretend that I'm, interesting and in the shadows like a film noir or something. Do you want me to just throw out my two then? Because I don't know.
You can do. Since we're going around, go ahead and give us both of yours.
Okay.
And then we'll go back around. You can do your third one.
So I found it obviously a bit different from I guess you guys would have, because to me they weren't obviously invasion acts; they were just our acts. So I had to check. Did these guys even try and crack America? Did they crack America? I mean, some were obvious. I know Duran Duran were in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and things, so that was an obvious one. But I had to check other ones. And then I thought, well, I'll go down a different route. Try and pick one that's a sure thing, one that made it once but never stayed the course, and one that never really made it at all. So that's how I kind of differentiated my three picks. So my number three, that I'll go with the one that definitely absolutely made it. 1985, Songs from the Big Chair, Tears for Fears. Was their second album. Their first album was quite dour and a bit depressing. The songs were all about coming to terms with child abuse and things. So, not exactly happy stuff. But the second album was where they really got into the more bombastic sound that people kind of associate with them, and the lush production values. God, I feel weird watching myself on camera. It's like that guy in the basement, like just talking about music, but you can hardly see him. It's like some creepy dude in the alley. Yeah, so the second album, there's a reason why when they did the box set of it a few years ago, Stephen Wilson did the remix, because it's almost progressive, although it's completely pop at the same time. But there's jazz in there, there's soul in there, there's obviously still new wave, there's a lot of synth pop, of course, but they're a bit more sophisticated and a bit more retro at the same time than a lot of the fellow acts. That would come to fruition on the next album, Seeds of Love, which took a few years to come out. I think that was about 4 years later. They were never terribly prolific. But yeah, this album, Songs from the Big Chair, I think it went 5 times platinum in the States, so it must have been absolutely massive. Although that was the year of a lot of platinum albums, wasn't it? But yeah, I mean, to even look at a couple of the tracks, obviously, Everybody Wants to Rule the World's probably the most enduring song that everybody knows. It's been in, a million movies and TV shows. But, I mean, talk about openers. Shout, Let It All Out, These Are the Days I Can Do Without. Mother's Talk's a great jazzy one. Broken, Head Over Heels was a massive smash single as well. So they were one of those acts who, on paper, should never have been quite as popular as they were, because they were doing some really weird stuff for the time. But it all came together with the pop hooks and the melody, and they somehow managed to make it a coherent whole. So yeah, I'd say that Tears for Fears are one of the bigger bands of this, despite the fact they actually have a relatively small discography in the 80s. They only did 3 80s albums. But I mean, they're continuing to this day. They take long gaps, but their new album only came out a few months ago, The Tipping Point. So, they fall out and bicker quite a lot and then get back together after a few years. But yeah, Songs from the Big Chair would definitely be my number 3. That would be my surefire, absolutely cracked America invasion choice. So,
Yeah, that's a great choice. I love that first album, though. I think the first album's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's perfect.
It kind of sums it up that the most well-known song from that is and I find it kind of funny, I find it kind of sad. The dreams in which I'm dying are the best I've ever had. I mean, it's it's not the happiest album.
Have you ever seen the movie Donnie Darko?
Only about 300 times, yeah.
But that, when the Tears for Fears song's on there, you're just sitting there going, wow. But the soundtrack to Donnie Darko's great. But
they didn't use the Tears for Fears, though. They used Gary Jules' version, didn't they?
No, it's Tears for Fears.
Gary Jules had the #1 single with it. His cover from
I'm pretty sure it's Tears for Fears, at least in my version of Donnie Darko that I saw.
Oh, no, Cinema Flix and Music Picks is different, but no. I think what they might have done then is maybe in the movie itself, they might have used that, and then on the actual credits or something, Gary Jules did it.
Maybe, I don't know.
It was Christmas #1 here, so I know that was definitely the hit. Somebody can check. Who's good at checking things? Gary Jules, Donnie Darko.
There you go. Excellent. Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and do your number 2?
Okay.
While you're up, might as well.
Might as well. So that was my definitely cracked America that people would know. My one that, and I kind of spoiled it earlier on because apologies. I say apologies that I didn't bring props. You couldn't bloody see them anyway. So
well, here's a prop.
There you go.
I'm ready for damn near anything, Davy. You'll figure that out.
Yeah.
There's the prop. But it's on your face, but everyone gets the idea.
That's fine, because Ryan covered my face in the video I made with him the other day. So
Well,
yeah,
he's like
yeah.
that. You got to watch him.
Yeah, I know. Mr. Good-looking dimple chin over there, I'll just cover everybody else's face.
And it's hard to believe he grew a beard over that dimple.
I
Just
know. Who
saying.
would do that?
Who would do
that?
that?
I know. I know.
You're right, Davy. Mad World by Tears for Fears, sung by American Gary Jules on the Donnie Darko soundtrack. Yes, you're right.
What is it on the Blu-ray? You sure it's not Tears?
Well,
for
my
Just
Arrow
told by what's on
Blu-ray
the
also has
soundtrack.
that.
So.
All
I
right.
can't believe you doubted someone who runs a film channel and a music channel about a music and film.
I doubt most people. Have you seen many times I've won music trivia?
I mean, you've just lost film trivia though, so you know.
Well, I'm not on film trivia.
Grant has a different version of the movie that plays in his head.
No, I will be fair to Grant. There is a completely different version, the director's cut, and I think that might actually be the case because the Killing Joke by Echo and the Bunnymen was not in the original version of Donnie Darko, but
And it's
was
on
in the
there.
director's cut. So I wondered if that's the case, and he couldn't get the rights, Richard Kelly, the director, to do Gary Jules, the original version, and then did for the director's cut. So I don't know that for sure, but I'm going to give you partial credit.
I'd put money on it if we want to lay down some money on this.
That's fine. I've got plenty of debts anyway. So my number 2, to go back to what we were talking about, was just something to do with British music, wasn't it?
What was?
Yeah. You have to excuse me. I'm not terribly up on British music. It's we don't get much of it here. So
It's just music to you.
It's just
Yeah.
music.
that's it. It's like if you go to China, do you ask for Chinese food or do you just ask for food?
You're right. You
I'm
are
glad the
correct.
jokes work even in the dark. This is great. So my number 2 would be, and I listened to all these today. Like I said to a few people the other day, I am meticulous when it comes to, if you ask me to rank something, to pick something, I'm never going to just do it from memory. I will always go back and listen to double check, triple check my work and make sure that I'm absolutely convinced, because, I'm not one of these, tomorrow it could be different. No, I'm going to give you my correct answer and stick by it. So my number 2, and this is the one that did kind of crack and then fell away and didn't stick the landing. Scotland's own Big Country with their first album, The Crossing.
Oh yeah.
There we go. Which is kind of insane because I had no idea I was going to be on here today, and literally 2-3 nights ago, one of my vinyl finds with Ryan and Tyler was from the Skids, and here I am talking about Stuart's next band, Big Country. I just think it's an absolute masterpiece. And when I saw that it actually charted in America, it went gold.
It was
quite
big.
shocked. Yeah, I was quite surprised that it did as well as that. And the kind of title track, In a Big Country, was a top 20 single as well.
Awesome video for that song too.
Yeah, and it's just, the band were very photogenic, very ahead of the game when it came to music videos as well. They had that kind of believability. They didn't do these silly videos. They had some really kind of almost short film like ones. But yeah, for the music itself, for anybody who isn't aware, if you can imagine a post-punk but folk-inspired U2 from Scotland with a bit of Thin Lizzy thrown in. There's, all in a blender, but with that punk attitude that had come from the Skids. Stuart Adamson's one of the great songwriters to come from the UK, I think. He was unfortunately a terribly depressed person and did end up taking his own life in the 90s. But you hate to say it, but that maybe made him the artist that he was at the same time as well, because his songs were incredibly deep and incredibly powerful, even back here on the debut album. There are tracks on it that are just mind-blowing with guitar, but it's never guitar histrionics. It's always in service of the song. So there's tracks on it like Fields of Fire, which is just an anthem. I mean, all these songs are very anthemic and have this great build and have a kind of tribal beat, a bit like Thin Lizzy's Emerald. that kind of feel. That's very much a proto Big Country kind of track. I think that's the kind of song that was inspiring to them. But long instrumental passages with guitars that are put through all sorts of pedals and things and boards to make them sound like different instruments. Sometimes even like bagpipes. Why they couldn't even get a real bagpipe in Scotland, I'm not quite sure. But there you go. It was the 80s. Somebody thought a keyboard could do everything, didn't they?
But who could play the bagpipes on that lead thing in a Big Country?
Yeah.
The guy
that
from-
thing, it sounds like bagpipes, but boy,
Yeah, it
Well-
does. It does for the time. It is amazing how well they did synthesize that.
But when they were out then, that was the big deal. All the media and everybody were, everybody, MTV, they were saying how the guitars sound like bagpipes.
Yeah.
It was the whole rage. And I mean, it did sound like
When you
bagpipes.
think
I'll
how
give it that.
often a drum machine didn't sound like drums, for example, or when synthesizers were supposed to sound like something else and didn't. But no, they've spent so much time in the studio to make the guitar sounds like bagpipes that it really does. It's really,
does sound like
it really sounds great. Looking at their discography, they did sustain their success in the UK, always massive in the Scottish charts, as you can imagine. But they never kept it up in the US. They never had a real charting album again. Maintained a cult by the looks of it, but didn't really tour after the first time. And Stuart was a bit of a homebody, didn't really like leaving the country anyway. So I think that was another one of the kind of things that held them back. If you're going to crack America, you obviously need to be over there. And he was never going to play the game of doing the MTV videos with makeup and supermodels and things. It was can't really see that with Big Country. But yeah, and they also did the soundtrack to one of my favorite films, the 80s Restless Natives, which is a fantastic film. Great instrumental soundtrack. Ned Beatty's in that. So the early 80s were a fantastic time for that whole Scottish scene with like Orange Juice and Deacon Blue and all these acts coming through. But in fact, I've got one more to go, but that's my second one. So there you go.
Excellent. I remember. I think I've got Wonderland, which was an EP they released,
Yeah, and that's
and then
on the
Steel Town. Is
Steel
that
Town's is the second album? Yeah.
I don't know. Did they put out a third record? I don't know. I don't
They
remember.
put up at 12. Yeah.
Oh, well, by that time in the States, we'd already given up.
Yeah. Import bins if you were extremely lucky, I'd imagine. But yeah, and now their state's kind of in limbo. Like even if you go to the online shop, there's nothing there. It's one of those kind of you don't want to go into the politics of it, but rights issues. The band still tours, but Big Country without Stuart Adamson.
Oh well, it is what it is. Those were two great picks.
Thank you.
Ryan, what you got?
All right. So my next pick is going to be the one I don't have a physical copy of, but I really love this album a lot. So this actually was not a big album when it was released. It's a debut for this band. They ended up having some big hits like Sweet Dreams or Made of These. I'm talking about the Eurythmics, and my number 2 pick is going to be In the Garden from 1981. I love this album. I first heard this one at the record store that I work at now, and it's one that I've played quite a few times there and then listened to online as well. It's my favorite Eurythmics album personally, just because I think where a lot of the other stuff has a very metallic type of sound to it, this one's so lush and atmospheric. It's just a beautiful album, and I like a lot of their stuff a lot, but this one just hits me on a different level. I mean, it has some really amazing songs on it. Honestly, it's one of those albums that's like a no filler, all killer type of album. It's got like English Summer, which is a great opener. Belinda, Take Me to Your Heart, which is a really good pop song. Beautiful vocals on that one by Annie. I really love Caveman Head. That's a great song. Never Gonna Cry Again's an excellent one. That was one of the singles off of it. Revenge, really good stuff. I just love the keyboards on this album, how moody they are. It's an interesting album because some of the songs do have like a darker type of feel to it, but other ones have an uplifting feel, but it's all very like tranquil, like you're floating in clouds or something. That's what this album really feels like to me, and I love it. Yeah, like I said, it's by far my favorite Eurythmics album, and I love the album cover too. I think it's a really cool shot of Annie and David. But yeah, that's my number 2. I think it's a great debut album. The only place it charted at all was Australia in 2005. It hit 521 on the charts. So it was not a commercially successful album. It was in 81, so I guess it was just as this invasion was starting. But I think it's just as solid as a lot of the other albums that were coming out at that point. Critic reviews are fairly positive. It's like mixed to positive, but I wouldn't say negative whatsoever. And I don't know. I think it's a great new wavy post-punk type of album. A lot of electronics, a lot of synths, keyboards, flute, etc. It's just really neat album, and I would recommend it if you guys haven't heard it, because I mean the band did have a lot bigger albums and they had a lot bigger songs than what was on here, but I think this album is aged extremely well.
Yeah, I don't think that ever was released domestically.
I was just
think
gonna
it was
say
only
that.
an import, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was only an import in the States, and that's really weird because you'd think RCA would have, in like a lull in their career, would have tried to redo it, right? Put it out.
As
I always thought
many
that was
records.
strange.
Yeah, as many records that they sold in the 80s. You remember the Rhythmics all over MTV. If I mean, they were big. Now I never hardly see any of their stuff used anymore, and you never hear about them anymore. It's like they've disappeared. You know what I mean? It's weird.
But Annie Lennox is again. This is from a UK perspective, but
Sure.
over here she's revered. I mean, especially she's from Scotland, so she's very much an icon. But she does live out in a farm up in the north of Scotland. She's not a city type, so they do reunite occasionally. They've done a few live shows over the years. They had a comeback in the 90s with was the big hit single they had. I Saved the World Today. It was used in The Sopranos and things. And although that was obviously their debut album as the Eurythmics, they had worked together as the Tourists in the punk era. So yeah, so Annie and Dave had worked together, and Dave obviously went on to a massive career as a producer and arranger as well. So yeah.
Excellent choice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. John the Music Nut.
Okay, so my next choice is a band that made 3 albums, and they never quite caught on to US, but when the singer went solo, he had a few hits. This was the back on the screen here, #1 album by a British artist in 1981, and it should have been a huge album here in the United States. And this album has endured so well. It is a non-stop party. Adam and the Ants, Kings of the Wild Frontier.
No, stop clapping.
Bravo. Bravo. Well, I wasn't expecting any Adam Ant.
Oh my gosh, non-stop party. You got 2 drummers. You got this Dwayne Eddy style guitar. They actually took the guitar riff from Rumble for the song Killer in the Home. Adam and his fantastic frontman. These songs are catchy as sin. As all of you out there in TV land know, that Adam Ant's big hit was Goody Two Shoes in the United States. There's like 5 songs on here just as catchy as Goody Two Shoes, if not more. Dog Eat Dog, Ant Music, and the title song were all huge hits in the UK. But here they only got played on your college rock radio stations. Maybe a little bit on early MTV.
They played it on MTV, I remember.
Goody
Yeah.
Two Shoes was their only hit.
Goody Two Shoes was the only big hit in the United States for Adam Ant.
Because Prince Charming was massive here. That was their don't you ever.
Mhm.
Yeah, you still hear
Yeah,
that.
and Stand and Deliver too. That was a big hit in the UK.
That was a big hit. And Strip.
Same-
Let's
same
not forget
voice, huh?
Strip.
I thought by Strip he was just getting too campy.
Yeah.
But
Well, he was
Yeah.
campy in 1981.
it
Well,
worked in '81. But I don't know. I think he should have stuck with this sound. But like everything on here, Los Rancheros is sketchy as hell.
What was
Feed Me
his
to the Lions, Press Darlings. I'm sorry,
What was his guitar player? Marco somebody?
Marco Peroni.
Great.
Marco Peroni.
Great. Anyway, sorry. Brain thing. I had to bring
Oh,
it
it's
up.
all good, but everything on here is great. Press Darlings, like I mentioned, that's one of my favorites. Jolly Roger, Killer in the Home. Killer in the Home tries to sound dark, but it still sounds like a party. It's fantastic. The Human Beings, You're So Physical, everything on this album's great. I would recommend this to anyone. It's aged so well, as I indicated before. My number 2, Adam and the Ants, Kings of the Wild Frontier.
Excellent. Now, Davy, you were kind of smirking a bit. Is Adam Ant a novelty act over there? Or
Yeah,
what?
100%. Yeah,
Okay.
because if you were cut off from it at that point, you'd say, well, that was kind of cool and quirky.
Mhm.
But having another 2 or 3 albums worth and years worth of hits, it became, my God, is he still dressed like a highwayman? And, is he still wearing all the frills, looking like he's wearing the puffy shirt from Seinfeld? I mean,
Well, he looked like a
That's
pirate.
good.
I mean, it was all just, and then he ended up doing pantomime, literally pantomime. So doing, Puss in Boots and Dick Whittington and things. So he did end up a total novelty act, and doing celebrity Big Brother or going to a jungle and eat a kangaroo or whatever the hell these shows are, So
Yeah, I don't think we saw that over here.
yeah.
Doesn't the UK have a show called I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here or something like that?
That's the one where they go into the jungle and eat
Yeah.
kangaroos. Yeah.
The
Well,
guy
you
from
know,
Stand Up LA did that, and I was not happy.
yeah.
He lost all credibility once he did that, right? Right, Todd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no, but it was just a rough patch.
A rough patch.
Which one was in the jungle? Martin? No, it wouldn't be Martin.
I thought it was Tony Hadley that did that show.
Oh yeah, it would be Tony. He'll do anything for a quick buck.
He'll do anything for money.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, he didn't write anything.
The minute he loses one
Right.
of their court cases, he'll yeah.
That's a whole
Right.
other show.
That's a whole other show. Well, John, that was excellent
Great
pick.
pick.
Even though it's a novelty song and a novelty.
Hey, you know
record.
what? I saw him in 2019, and he was great. He was really, really good. And he had,
outfits these days, though.
he had almost as much energy as he used to have, but not quite.
So it sounds
love
like
to see
Adam
him
and the
live.
Ants fared better over here over the long term than they ever did over in the UK. Interesting. Maybe. I don't know.
You still see them on these bills, like 80's nostalgia bills, where you get like Kajagoogoo and them and whoever's left from 5 Star and Dollar and all these acts that nobody really wants to see, but if you throw 10 of them together, you might get somebody to pay 30 quid to go and see them. So yeah.
Adam and the
Commitment.
Ants trivia. Maybe somebody can help me with this, but the guy who was one of the drummers, and I think his name is Merrick, was in Tears for Fears. He's on Songs from the Big Chair.
That's not.
He may not be a drummer. I really shouldn't say things without having the internet in front of me, but somebody from it was Merrick from Tears from Adam and the Ants was in
Was on-
played
he-
with. played
Yeah,
with.
you're right. You're,
but I
you're
don't.
100%.
I'm not 100% sure he was a drummer, but
Merrick was best known as the producer for songs from The Big Chair.
that's what it is.
And co-writer of Everybody Wants to Rule the World.
That's what it is.
Did
I
he
had
play any drums on
I
that
had it
record, though?
partially correct.
That's some royalties for you, isn't it? If you're gonna have one co-writing credit on that album, you're probably gonna want Everybody Wants to Rule the World.
I'm not seeing him listed as a.
All right.
No. Manny Elias was drums on tracks 2 through 7, and no, I'm not
Okay.
seeing anything.
What's his? Does it say what his real name is? His name is
it
different.
did, yes. Hang on, I gotta find it again. I had it here a second. Christopher Merrick Hughes.
Yeah,
Christopher Hughes.
Yeah.
Christopher Hughes. There you go.
All right. Well, we got that. All right, kids. I'm going to go. My number 2 is Culture Club Colored by Numbers. Now, this record has aged very well. There's not one weak track on it. I mean, they'd never ever put out a record this strong ever again. I mean, Waking Up with the House on Fire it sounded like this record, but it was not the same record by a long shot. This was loaded with singles. Here in the States, Church of the Poison Mind, Karma Chameleon, Victims, Miss Me Blind, It's a Miracle. The whole thing is great. People never talk about this record anymore. I don't know why. Probably because they think Boy George is a novelty act, but whatever. It had great production. Steve Levine produced this. He produced, I think, the first album. I think he produced the third. Heck, he might have produced the fourth one too. But if you look at the reviews for this thing, it's still, All Music gave it 4.5. Rolling Stone gives it 4. I mean, it constantly gets great reviews. Smash Hits
Don't
gave it
cite
10 out of
Rolling
10.
Stone as an example of reviews.
Hey,
So,
we use Rolling Stone here on this channel. Dave, you just gonna have to catch up.
Papa was a Rolling Stone, man.
Village Voice gave it a B+.
Yeah,
How's
sure.
that?
Robert Christa gave it a F.
No, Robert Christchild liked it. But anyway, I think this is a great record. I still love it. I love it more now than I ever have. And I would highly recommend it, even though it's probably forgotten in the... No, Ryan's going, it's not forgotten. Okay.
No, I don't think it's forgotten either.
I throw it on.
I don't know how they look at Culture Club in the UK now.
Everybody knows who Boy George is. And they definitely know Karma Chameleon, they definitely know Do You Really Want to Hurt Me? They know all the big hits. And George is he's a real fun guy as well, because although he's as camp as Christmas, he's
That's a way of looking at it.
He's a tough guy. Like, his brothers are all boxers, and he grew up in an Irish family of and he was trained as a boxer as a kid. So there's all these stories about him getting people thinking they can try and mug him at gigs and things, and then he would end up beating the shit out of them. So wouldn't you love to see that footage? Boy George beating the shit out of somebody backstage.
I'd like to see it.
But yeah, I mean, he was having hits here right through till pretty much the 2000s. With I mean, I think his last really big one was he did the Crying Game for the soundtrack of The Crying Game, funnily enough. But yeah, still
It's a great
had
track.
hits. Yeah, the Dave Berry original, but his is great too.
Anyway, that's my number 2. On to round 3. Todd, what do you have?
Right.
Maybe I'll have the graphic. You never know.
Do you want us to do honorable mentions with our number 3, or you want to
Sure, why
another
not?
round?
Nah, just do it
Okay.
now. What the
All
hell?
right. So my number 3, and I picked the band. I had a little trouble picking the album, but I went with Architecture and Morality by Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. And when I heard this, I was, let me see, what year is this? Oh, it doesn't have the right
Isn't that
year.
81?
No.
Yeah, something like that.
I thought it was
I think it was
Victoria.
yeah.
I don't know. I
it
thought
only-
that's like the first one, though, isn't it?
I thought
No,
that was
it's
the second one.
There's a second one in the States. In the UK, I think it's the third one.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
In
they
the
had
States,
an EP as well. Yeah.
they took the two records that were
Mhm.
first in the UK and they put them into one. But this record, I mean, Joan of Arc and Joan of Arc Maid of Orleans, the Joan of Arc suite, I guess you could call it. I discovered this at the same time that I discovered Yes. I heard this pretty much the same time I heard not close to the edge, and You and I thought to myself, I love the Mellotron, but nobody uses the Mellotron anymore. The Mellotron had fallen out of fashion, and nobody wanted to use it anymore, and keyboardists hated it. And this this album has Mellotron on it, and I thought to myself, that's so cool that they're playing the Mellotron. That's so out of fashion. It's so it's like they were so cutting edge that they'd circled back around. I think that these two guys, Paul Humphreys and Andy McCluskey, are just out of this world talented and original. And this record is probably the best one. I had a little bit of trouble. I'm really fond of this one. I'm really fond of the Pacific Age from 1986. And this is when they had become a 6-piece and added horn players. And but Architecture and Morality is really a stunning record. And so that's my number one.
So that's a domestic CD, or is that an import?
This is the remastered version of the.
Hold it up even closer. I want to see it.
And it's
Okay.
it's came out in 2003, but the version that I had when I was in high school was green. It was an import because it wasn't released here. They didn't release their back albums until they broke with Crush in '85, and then A&M put them out. But this was on Virgin Records. This part was cut out, and it was turquoise blue, I think. I mean that part was like cut out, where the picture is. But I love OMD. I was so enthralled with it because it was so lush and sounded like prog rock to me. And they were, for a big chunk of my life, OMD was my favorite band.
That's a good choice.
Wikipedia says that was their third album, by the way.
Yeah. And honorable mentions, I got to put Spandau Ballet in there. I usually call Spandau Ballet my favorite 80s band. Incredibly underrated. The reason I didn't pick them as one of my top three is that I've always thought that they kind of had good songs, but not necessarily albums that were 100% good all the way through. So, yeah, great bass player. Gary Kemp now, who is in Saucer Full of Secrets with Nick Mason playing Floyd covers. And it's great because people are just like, would you ever thought that the guy from Spandau Ballet would be able to play and sing Pink Floyd songs? And I was like, I would, because Spandau Ballet is a great band and they don't get any respect. All right, that's my soapbox. And then Rio, of course. I have a great Rio story. When the first record came out, 1981, I was a senior in high school. We had a exchange student from the UK, and we invited him to a party. And because he didn't know anybody, and so we thought, well, we're having a party, we'll invite him. And so he brought the first Duran Duran album to the party and said, there's this new band, Duran Duran, you got to hear them, they're great. And we had never heard it before, and it was an import. It wasn't released in the United States yet. And he had a dance that he used to do. It was something like this. But it was that guy was. We were just like, man, I can't. We're so happy that you introduced us to Duran Duran because this was. I don't know which one I like better. I picked Rio, but I like the first album probably just as much. And then my other honorable mention would be Howard Jones' "Dream into Action," which I don't have a physical copy of, but I used to have the Target CD.
I've got the Target CD.
I got to get another one of those.
Of course.
And I've got Dream into Action on a Target CD. I used to have the Made in USA version of that, which is rare.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sold it.
I could easily come up with 10 more of these, but I'll stop there.
Oh, yeah, I could come up with a crap ton. But that's a great choice. I wasn't thinking of hearing any OMD being mentioned. So
And I really wanted to pick Ultravox, but I sort of thought they didn't count because they've sort of got two careers. They had a different front man and they started in the 70s. And so, I mean, I feel like 80s Ultravox with Midge sort of counts, but
I mean, Vienna's
I didn't
kind of
pick-
right in that pocket, though.
yeah, I didn't pick it because I wasn't sure it technically fit. So
You know,
But I don't
OMD
think
are
it-
one of the true greats, I think, because and what makes them progressive is, to me, not only their Mellotron, but they didn't do choruses in the 80s.
no, they didn't. You're right.
It was all done with the Mellotron was the singer essentially for the chorus. So they just did verses, even on the big hits like God, I know you said they didn't really make it to America till '85, but before that, over here, Enola Gay was their massive song. Souvenir was still one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard in my
Yeah,
life.
it's one of my absolute favorite songs of all time.
Yeah,
I should have mentioned
gorgeous.
it when I was talking about the album.
Yeah, and it's such a fragile vocal. You know, it feels like it's almost going to fall apart on you. It's delicate and wonderful.
What was
Um,
the song that was in the John Hughes film? I love that song. Was
If You
was
Leave.
it in Breakfast Club or Pretty in Pink?
It was If You Leave was in Breakfast Club.
Yeah, I love that song.
No, I'm sorry. Pretty in Pink.
You could have just British bands that did John Hughes movies and things, couldn't you? Like with
That's a separate show.
with Psychedelic Furs doing Pretty in Pink, and then you could have Simple Minds, another Scottish band, obviously with Don't You Forget About Me. So yeah,
Amazing. So great.
Yeah, it's
but
funny that you mentioned that about the choruses. It's like Enola Gay, the chorus of Enola Gay is a keyboard solo,
it's
which is really cool. I mean, that was a really unique song structure.
And they had a really cool comeback in the '90s, really unexpected post Britpop. Where they came back with, oh God, I can't remember the name of the album, but it had "Walking in the Milky Way" became a smash hit single for them right in the middle of Britpop.
Yeah. That was he did Andy McCluskey did 3 OMD albums with just him, just him and some other people. But they don't skip a beat. They don't sound really any different. They just don't have any Paul Humphreys vocals.
To be fair, they did. He had choruses by then, but it sounded perfectly in keeping with Britpop. It didn't sound like it missed a beat.
I remember.
Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. I remember reading an interview with him, and he dissolved OMD for a while after that album came out. I think it was 97 or 98 or something like that. And he said, "Walking in the Milky Way is the best I can do. If I can't get a hit record with a song like that, I'm not going to try anymore because that's the absolute best song I can come up with."
It's a brilliant song. It's just such a.
And I just thought that was so great. He was like, "I'm done. I did the best thing I could."
I'm done. That's it.
But
then they came back and they made a bunch of great records in the 2000s.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's it called? If You Want It, 2010, is that what it's called? That was a fantastic single as well.
Hang on.
Yeah. If you want it, it will come. Yeah, that's another fantastic one. Yeah.
Oh,
They have 2 after that. I have a signed vinyl over there.
what year's that? I've never seen that.
This
ever.
one here is
2010 or something?
2010. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
So basically, you're saying if you see any OMD out there in the wild,
there's no bad OMD.
there's
yeah.
not a bad
there
one.
isn't any.
Pick
No.
it up.
Yeah.
All right, I'm down with that. I'll keep my eye open. I mean, I see it every now and then, and I do see a lot of the greatest hits, like in the cheapy bins for like $1, and you know.
Oh, pick it
But-
up, man. Pick it up.
But I've got that one. Uh-oh.
Is the cheapy bin to buy it?
Well, I've already have it, but you
Right.
see OMD in the cheapy bins around here every now and then.
It's a shame. They deserve better than that. They should
Well,
be on
don't
the
forget
walls,
other than Enola Gay, that was the only real hit other than the hit from the, Pretty in Pink.
So how was Enola Gay a hit in America?
It was a single.
This
What's
one,
that?
Well, that's cool. That's
Punishment of Luxury, it's signed by Andy and Paul.
Cool. That's cool.
This came out in 2017.
Yeah.
Look at that. I didn't know that
40 years. Yeah. they're
Todd's
still
such a
going.
fanboy.
I
didn't
am.
know that. You
Guilty.
are. That's all right. That's okay. Excellent choice. Sorry, I was reading the message Ryan sent. John, what's your number 3?
All right. Well, Davey kind of stole my thunder with Big Country. So, because that's what I was going to go with. Because I was, yeah, no, don't be sorry. Fantastic album. Just so many great. I just loved all the guitar work that's on this thing. The moody. There's just so much moodiness about it. I just really have digging this album so much. But a part of me almost kind of wanted to say Robert Plant's Pictures at 11, but I knew that would probably be cheating a little bit. It was probably too much of a hard rock album. But Plant kind of was going a little different directions. He wasn't really sticking to that Zeppelin sound, at least after Pictures at 11. But anyway, I wasn't going to go there. But the only other pick I think that I could probably even talk a little bit about would probably be A Flock of Seagulls. Just totally mesmerized by the Iran video and that song and Paul Reynolds' guitar work in that song.
Paul Reynolds is one of
iconic.
my favorite guitarists.
Oh
and
my gosh.
He's very simple, very sparse, but always he always plays the perfect thing.
He
never gets any credit. I think he's
No.
fantastic.
Yes, I completely agree. And I just think, man, and he was like, what, 17, 18 years old
Yeah.
when that album came out. I really need to go back and listen to the rest of that album. But I mean, my goodness, I mean, just Iran is worth the price of admission so much. It really was a good album. It's been a long time since I've listened to it. But, man, if I have to give Paul Reynolds and Flock of Seagulls some love, because that song just totally mesmerized me with his guitar work. But between Big Country and Flock of Seagulls, I mean those would be my other picks. So
That's good. But those first 3 Flock of Seagulls records,
The third one never gets any love, and it's
the
almost
story of a young heart?
one. Yeah.
That's almost damn near as good as the first one. If you see
that's
any-
another band I would have to go back and really look because
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with much of anything after that first album. So
if you can get it. Cherry Red did a remaster series on that, and they even did the 4th album, but the 4th album went out of print like that. And now if you look on Discogs or anywhere, it's like $100 or
I used to have it.
$125.
Yeah, I used to have it.
But they remastered. You can still get the first 4, and then they did like a singles collection and a rarity CD. If you go on Cherry Red and get the remasters, they've got bonus tracks and stuff. They're phenomenal. They're not all jacked up either as far as the sound. They're mastered very well. They sound really good.
I love Cherry Red. They're one
Great
of the-
stuff. And
One of the great labels for
great
Reaching.
label.
What they're doing with Toya Wilcox at the moment is just fantastic.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And Esoteric, like if you're into prog and stuff. Holy
Yeah,
crap.
we were hyping them up the other day on SOT, and wow,
Well,
what you've done with
speaking of Cherry Red, this has nothing to do with new wave, but they were a British band, but they were more new album. They just did this reissue of
Raven.
Raven's Rocket Till You Drop debut album, and I can't wait to dig into this thing.
Is that Esoteric?
No, this was Cherry Red.
Okay.
This
But
was
I
a
mean,
Cherry Red.
Esoteric did that Steppenwolf box set and the Iron Butterfly box set.
Iron Butterfly.
It's all top-notch stuff, and it just sounds great. I love all their stuff. It's all imports here, though, I think.
Esoteric did this great Tony Banks box set, which you'd think was only made for me, but
I'd
it's
love
just
to meet Tony Banks one day.
it's just fantastic. It's just every album, and it's just a whole. It's just
I'm not sure
great.
you'd like to meet me, but I'd love to meet Tony.
I would too.
It would no, I think probably for different reasons from me actually, but
Yeah, Ernesto, Echo and the Bunnymen's great. Heaven 17.
do
Heaven
it
17 in the States never
Temptation.
took off.
Yeah, Temptation was still on the radio every day here.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were way bigger over there than they ever were here.
Echo as well, with Ian's still a massive star over here, Ian McCulloch. So yeah.
Well, John, excellent pick. I just have a quick question. What is that Big Country set that you were holding up, though? Is that like a
This
anthology of
this
some
is
sort?
a
No, it's
This
the
was
deluxe
a
edition.
here. I'll take.
Oh, that's one of those deluxe edition. It looks like.
Yeah.
So is
Yeah,
it the
this was-
first album?
This is
Yeah,
the
the one I talked
crossing.
about.
It was a 30th anniversary edition,
Oh, okay.
and this has a bunch of bonus tracks. Let me see here. A lot of bonus tracks. This two's got a lot of demos, just different mixes, just a little bit of everything on this.
It's
It's
uh,
got their
throwing
original EP as well.
it's throwing me off because the cover's green and the
Yeah.
record was blue here in the States.
yes.
So
Yeah. So
They are one of those slightly annoying bands for covers because they use pretty much that logo for about 1 million different albums and compilations and live things, but just the logo and then a plain background. So, you know, you can easily look at the same thing or different albums and think it's the same thing.
yeah.
But that was
Cool.
produced by Steve Lillywhite as well, funnily
yes, it
enough.
was.
I
Yeah.
love Steve Lillywhite. Love it.
To add to the, U2 connection around that time as well.
That's right. All right, Ryan, you're up. What's your number 3?
All right, so my number 1 pick is The Pleasure Principle by Gary Newman. So this album came out in 79, so it's a little bit older than a couple of the others that are the other ones that have been talked about so far, but it is known as like one of the first albums in this second British invasion, and I absolutely love this album. I mean, first of all, Gary Newman's keyboard tone is awesome. I think he has it through like guitar amps or something like that, so it sounds exactly like guitars. And it's such a powerful sound. I mean, all the way through. I mean, I love tracks like Metal. That's such an awesome song. Really catchy riff. I mean, a lot of this album's kind of samey sounding, but it's like so good that it doesn't matter. There is some variations though throughout. You have some good instrumentals like the beginning Air Lane. Complex is a really great poppy type song. Films is a pretty dark one. I love that. The biggest song on this is Cars, which is on side 2. And I adore that song. When I first heard it, it really blew my mind. Just really great riffs there. I love Gary Newman's voice. It kind of reminds me of what Brian Eno's voice sounds like. So that was an instant draw for me because I'm a huge Eno fan. And I just think all the way through, this is a great album. Side 1 and side 2. I love the album cover too. It's a really neat album cover. It's just an iconic album in general. I remember just looking around for this one everywhere and then finally finding it and being so excited. And that same day, I also found the 2 Tubeway Army albums as well, which Replicas I really love. And the debut is good too, but I had to end up going with this one. Although I also thought about Telecon too.
Telecon's really good too.
From 80, which would have been a little closer in year to your guys' picks. But I just think Pleasure Principles by far. Yeah, Dance is a good one. I just think by far Pleasure Principles probably his best record. He knocked it out of the park with that technically first solo album, even though like I think Replicas was called like it was credited to Gary Newman and the Tubeway Army, but this is like the first real solo album of his, and it's just an awesome album. Really catchy, quirky, synth pop, new wavy type stuff. If you haven't heard it, definitely check it out. It's a classic. And then for honorable mentions, I was thinking I really love Notorious by Duran Duran. That's such an awesome album. It's probably my second favorite by them. I was thinking I wanted to put Dire Straits, but I didn't think they actually counted, so I didn't have them on the list. But I could have put any Dire Straits album up to Brother in Arms, basically, because I just love that band so much. And I also would do Culture Club. What album you mentioned?
Color by Numbers?
Yeah, Color by Numbers. I love that album. What I was gonna say about that one is that I play that one every once in a while in the record store, and it usually gets a pretty good reception from both old and young. So, yeah,
It's a
those
great
have
record.
been those would have been the ones I would think of. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff out there from this time. It's just a cool little era of music to dive into.
I wanted
Excellent.
to make a comment about the Pleasure Principle. One of my favorite things about that album is that all of the song titles are only one word. And I think that's
Mhm.
really cool. And every time I see another band do that or another artist, I always think, the Pleasure Principle. I always think
Exactly.
I always like it when people make song titles just one word. I think that's really creative. And
Me too.
people don't realize that Gary Newman's, those are rock albums. They think because he was a keyboardist that they're all synth poppy and drum machine and stuff like that. They're rock albums. They're a band.
Yeah, but going back to Tubeway Army, how heavy is Our Friends Electric?
Yeah.
Super heavy.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And yeah,
Definitely.
he's one of those guys, a bit like Billy Idol, who's became so famous himself that he overshadowed his band, and people don't even consider the band. They just consider those tracks to be his anyway. So a bit like Billy Idol with Generation X. People just consider those Billy Idol tracks. So the Tubeway songs will appear on Gary Newman compilations and things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
Cool guy.
choice, Ryan. Oh,
He's still got. He's
Go
still
ahead.
made about 20 albums. I think he had one out last year as well.
Mhm.
yeah, he's still going strong. John the Music Nut. Let's hear your number 4. I mean,
Well,
number 3
Well, actually,
or number 4. What the hell?
I actually go like 3, 2, 1, and this would be my number 1.
Okay.
And Dave was reading my mind. But
I came
wanna
in late
talk-
and then stole everybody's picks.
Yeah, it's all
There
good.
it is.
I mean,
Just so we
yeah.
can see it again. We'll flash
Tears
the
for
graphic.
Fears.
1985.
Songs from Big Chair, 1985. But I can add a little more to this. Now, Tears for Fears are a wonderful band. I mean, I personally think this album, and especially the next album, Seeds of Love, are masterpiece albums. They're different sounding albums. Seeds of Love was more progressive, but this album is more of a pop album, but it's expertly done pop. Shouts. The guitar solo in Shout by Roland Orzabal, to this day, ever since I heard it in 1985, still brings me chills. I think it's one of the best guitar solos ever recorded. To me, the best guitar solos are the ones that you can sing. You can sing that solo. And he is a fantastic musician. He was, in more ways than one, he was Tears for Fears. He was the brains behind Tears for Fears. The albums without Kirk Smith are also very good. Raoul and the Kings of Spain, Elemental, they're both very good albums. But to add some more things to it, yes, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, very popular song, used to be the theme to the Dennis Miller Show on HBO back in the 90s and the 2000s. I Believe is a wonderful piano ballad. Excellent track there. And Broken, that's mostly instrumental. It sounds a lot like the progressive pop that Genesis was making in the 80s. It is a killer track. Excellent song, but an excellent album. But this would be my number 1 for the second British invasion. Now, my honorable mention is a band who, if I still remember correctly, they only made 3 albums. And they're more known as a ska band. And I like to say the first album's the ska album, the second album is the reggae album, the third album was the pop album. Now, they're called the Beats in the UK and England, but everywhere else, they're the English Beat. And this is their third album. This is called Special Beat Service. This is a wonderful, wonderful album. Wonderful pop album. Dave Wakeling's vocals on this are amazing. The horns are spectacular. Save It for Later was probably the most famous song that they did that got the most headway in the United States. It's just a great 3-chord pop song, and the strings at the end give it a very big 60s Baroque feel. But so many great songs on air. Salvation, Rotating Head you hear in commercials sometimes to this day, which is a really cool tune. But I mean, a lot of songs still have that ska feel. They have a lot of horns, but it's not that heavy dance feel that you hear from the I Just Can't Stop It album, their debut. Wonderful album though. Sugar and Stress, Ended a Party. So many great songs on this album. I would recommend all three of their albums from 1980 through 82. So there's my choices.
John, when you said ska, I almost thought you were going to mention Madness.
Oh yeah, Madness are great. Madness are great too. Yeah, when we got MTV when we got MTV in our house in 1984, they played those Madness videos heavy. I mean, that's where I found
All the time.
House of Fun and One Step Beyond. Yeah, yeah, Madness are cool. I like Madness a lot.
And if you want to talk about your bands that are still as good as they were back then, Madness's albums in the last 10 years have been, if not as good, then better than they were in the 1980s. Not as catchy and poppy maybe, but really well produced. Sug still sounds amazing.
Nice,
Yeah, they are a fantastic band who are still as fabulous
That's
as
awesome.
ever.
excellent.
Wow, excellent. All right, Davey, what's your number 3 or number 1 or whatever we're doing?
Yeah, so I missed the kind of ground rules at the start because people have said, I didn't think this fit and I didn't know what was going to fit, so I just threw things out there. My number 1, again, I'm just going to represent Scotland today. Why not? I said the band that made it, so that was Tears for Fears. The band that nearly did, which was Big Country, and then the band that just didn't even try to make it. And I'm going to go with a band who did make it all over the UK, lasted the 80s, split up, and that's Aztec Camera with their debut album, which is Highland Hard Rain from 1983. It's one of the best debut albums, along with The Crossing, that you hear from the 80s. Roddy Frame is the main songwriter of the band, and there's always been a scene in Glasgow, which was majorly inspired by power pop, and that scene begat the likes of Teenage Fan Club and Belle and Sebastian, right up through to Franz Ferdinand later on. And one of the first bands to come out of that scene were indeed who am I talking about again? It's very late here. Aztec Camera.
Aztec Camera, yeah.
So Aztec Camera, who on the debut album is very Django pop. So they are post-punk, but you can hear that they're definitely more into maybe Roger McGuinn's Birds kind of playing, because that's kind of underpinning the whole thing. Where it's very acoustic led, but then, as was said, the bass kind of turns it into much more of a deeper, darker rock album. There's bass throughout it that just turns it into a much more dark affair. It was much of it was written while Roddy was only about 17, and a song like "We Could Send Letters" is not just an anthem, but you think it's reached its kind of apex and its climax, and then it jumps up again into a further. It's like a chorus within a chorus. "We Could Send Letters" is just one of the most phenomenal singles that I've ever heard in my life, and for a 17-year-old to write it's just breathtaking. It's one of those kind of you think, Chris, what was I doing when I was 17? I certainly wasn't writing songs like that. But they would go on. I don't know if they ever did anything in America really, but they would go on to have kind of big hits, were really massive hits in the UK, like Somewhere in My Heart was a massive hit later in the 80s. That was all over the UK. But they split. Roddy was another one of those. I'm not terribly interested in the Fame game, and I don't want to be. I'm too caught up in it. And oddly enough, he decided to quit the band and break them up just almost exactly the same kind of time as another Scot. Fish decided to do the same with Marillion, just sick of the Fame game, and said, no, enough of that. I'm kind of just wanting to go at my own pace. So that's what he's done ever since. Roddy's just released every few years. If you're signed up to his newsletter, you don't get constantly buy my new T-shirt, buy my lyrics book. Every 3 years or something, you'll get I've got a new album coming out. You interested? And that's the last time you'll hear from him until the next one comes out 4 years after that or something. But just a prodigious talent, a wonderful power pop, post-punk, but also with influences all over the place. You can hear some flamenco playing, you can hear some jazz, but all with this great, almost lo-fi teen bedroom style right at the base of it, but with flourishes added on top of it that just make it 100 times more interesting than that could possibly be. So, if he was born in Seattle or something around the same time, he probably would have turned into one of those grungy boys. But being born in East Kilbride, he ended up turning into kind of power pop prodigy in the UK. So if you don't know it, Highlands Heavy Rain, the debut album from I keep wanting to. Do you know why it is? I keep wanting to say Arcade Fire for some reason, but it's Aztec Camera. Aztec Camera, and if you only check out one song from this whole episode that from my 3 albums, it is definitely We Could Send Letters, which is just I swear to God, what I said, I like to be meticulous and listen to my picks over and over again just to make sure. It took me even longer because I listened to We Could Send Letters 3 times back to back and just kept playing that, and then thought, well, I need to try and listen to the other albums as well. But yeah,
Excellent.
so Aztec Camera. So they didn't invade, but I'm going to put them down as an act who
They fit in there though.
yeah, I'm going to say they didn't invade because they were at home man in the fortress. But to throw out just again, I didn't even know we were doing honourables, and then I had all the kerfuffle trying to just talk, which has never been a problem for me before. But to throw out just names, Paul Young, I don't know if he made much of an impact, but he was a fantastic singer around this time. Howard Jones was mentioned, I think, but to throw another similar name, Nick Kershaw. Was another act who just kind of
He never made a dent here at all though. But those first 2 records are so good.
Yeah, and it's just phenomenal pop. So I mean, I think time has been very kind to a lot of these acts who were kind of written off as, oh, they're just a pop act, and now it's, hey, that's a pop act. We can kind of appreciate it a lot. Not that people like us didn't always appreciate it, but you kind of wait for the general public. And as we've seen, as Ryan and I and Tyler were kind of laughing about the other day, as we've seen, sometimes it takes a bloody TV show to use a 40-year-old song to make people actually realize how good it is. And you just think, well, there's millions of that music out there. Why don't you just go and investigate it rather than waiting for the producers of some TV show to put it on their soundtrack? So yeah, there's so much of it. Just pick a random episode of Top of the Pops. Anybody that's watching from the 80s, just Google Top of the Pops a week in the 80s, and you will find that week's top 40, and just pick some. You'll find absolutely millions and millions of artists that never made it, but probably should have over to America.
Excellent. Top notch. Thank you, Davey. I appreciate it. Now, for my number 1, I'm going to kind of blend this together because Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation was supposed to be on this show, but he couldn't make it. Peter had to work. So, you have to work. So he gave me his picks. So one of his picks is Tears for Fears, Songs from the Big Chair. We've talked about that. That's one of them. The second,
don't like that one.
What?
I'm not keen on that one.
His other one is A Human League Dare from 1981.
I did mention that one to you on Facebook earlier. You were working as a waitress in a cocktail.
There you go. So that was his other one. Now his third choice, I don't know how we're ranking his, is Duran Duran Rio, which is my number one. And I just remember when I first heard this, when I was a kid, it came like on the radio, and it was basically on our classic rock station, which is weird. But it popped on, and it basically was one of those things where well, we'll wait for that. It basically changed my life because I heard it and I'm going, oh my God, what is that? I'd never heard anything like it before in my life, and it was Hungry Like a Wolf. When that song came out, there was really nothing quite like that. And it just came out and just kind of took off. But that whole record, I just totally got enthralled, and I just loved everything that they did to a certain point. I mean, when Andy Taylor left, I don't know. I think the first and second album are brilliant. The third one, I think the cracks are starting to form a little bit. Now, I know you guys like Notorious and all. To be quite honest, I've never heard Notorious. I kind of gave up.
Notorious is a cool album. It's real sleek and sophisticated. It's a very good album.
Isn't it Nile Rodgers, maybe? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like their Jimmy James kind of style album, that kind of scene. It's almost like them trying to do the Minneapolis sound.
But I like the way Rio sounds. Like Ryan was saying, it's just a beautiful record. It's almost like Roxy Music, and I don't know how to describe it. But the whole there's not one weak track on Rio. I think it's, like I said at the time, they kind of were thought of as like a teeny bop band, but I saw them much more than just that. I just thought they were revolutionary. And I still think at least the first three albums are well worth price of admission, you know. If you can find them, get them. But I did kind of jump the boat after that. I know it sounds not very good, but it wasn't just me. They could hardly ever get a hit either after. I mean, I don't think Notorious really was a big seller, was it? I don't know.
Again, I don't want to speak to you over there, but over here it certainly was. And they were still having hits right up until God, what was the album that had Ordinary World on it in 1993?
Duran Duran.
Yeah, the one that really killed them over here permanently, until they kind of came back, is like when people had grown up and kind of forgiven them, was that covers album that they made.
Mm-hmm.
Who needs to hear Duran Duran cover 911 is a joke? I mean, that's just what.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like I'm making it up, but they literally covered NWA. I mean, what's going on there? So they were so desperate to be relevant in about 96, 97 that they just, they became a bit of a joke.
They have an album in the early 2000s called Red Carpet Massacre, and it's produced by Timbaland, and it's pretty bad. And then it was all uphill from there. And then they just started getting better and better after that.
Yeah.
And I think what also might have done them in a little bit around the time that you say you fell off for them, Grant, Simon was massively criticised for his vocals at Live Aid. And they were saying they were a plastic band and they couldn't play their instruments and stuff. They couldn't hear themselves. There was a real problem with hearing themselves on stage, and Simon was singing completely out of key and things, and that kind of
might have hurt him.
That led to the split, didn't it? And then two of them went off to form Arcadia. The other guys went off to form Power Station with first of all Michael DeBarris and then Robert Palmer, which I like Power Station. It's half a Duran Duran with Robert Palmer as the lead singer. So
I love Arcadia though.
Yeah. Oh, Power Station is much better.
Yeah, but Arcadia seems
I like Power Station
the
too.
Duran Duran album that should have been, I think.
No, you should have just kicked out Simon and got Robert Palmer in permanently. I think that would have.
Maybe.
But yeah.
The nurse. So many great bands in that younger generation will never understand. He also says Andy Taylor is a very underrated guitar player. I would agree. Andy's not hardly doing anything now, but didn't he put like a solo album out not very long ago?
I'm not sure.
I think he's had a little bit of demon issues, some addiction issues. I think, and I think that was what's keeping him. I think that was what was kind of keeping him away from the spotlight for a while. But I could be wrong on that.
What killed them was when Justin produced them. Justin Timberlake?
Well, Timberland. I think that's the pun there.
Okay.
Chris Stokes, Naked Eyes. Oh, yeah, Naked Eyes. I love those. 2 Naked Eyes albums are freaking wonderful. Excellent point, Chris.
Yeah, great comments in here. Absolutely. I mean, we had
What that means.
Bill Kinney left a comment earlier too that was very good, and he mentioned the Outfield's Play Deep album. That's a great choice.
Yeah, which
there
is
he
a
is.
great choice. Well, I brought it back up. There it is.
Oh, okay, there you go. All right.
Let me plug a couple of things. I just put up. I want to get rid of Phil though. See, I'm not very good at this. I've said that before. I just put up a Cheapy Bins episode yesterday, which is number 3, and I streamed it live. That was fun. That's still up there if you want to check it out. At this point, I think I'm just going to keep doing it as an ongoing series because I just love doing it. Another thing we've got coming up is the first Friday night chat, which is coming up on June 17th at 8 p.m. I might move it to 8:30. I don't know. We'll see how the Pylon interview goes, but right now it's scheduled at 8. And the topic is records that you spent way more money on than you'd like to admit. So we're putting it out to the audience. And like I said, I'll be here. I won't try to judge, but you can confess all your sins to me and everything will be okay. So if you want to join on that chat and watch the video, we're going to be doing that on June 17th. What else? I think that's all I'm going to plug. Does anybody else have anything to add or need to plug? We got another 5 minutes. Anybody have anything else to throw out there? Ryan, Todd, John, you're good?
Yeah,
I'm good.
I'll plug if you want. I'll plug anybody.
Davey, go ahead.
So literally in 5 minutes, I'm on in the Monsters Den with Pete and Dan Brown. But luckily that was recorded over at Sea Tranquility. That was recorded on Sunday. Although this lighting would be quite good for a Monsters Den episode, wouldn't it? That would be quite apropos. But we're doing the top 5 Mario Bava movies. So. And as I said to Ryan, I got the correct 5. Dan and Pete didn't quite make it, but yeah. So my top 5 definitely is the right answer. You need to tune in and see what they are. But yeah, let's. Curse the Collector was up the other day, and then I've taken a little break from making videos after being thrown into Facebook prison. But I'm on parole at the weekend, so I should be okay to come back and start sharing my wares.
Super. Yeah. Well, kids, I think this wrapped up another episode. I want to thank each panel member, Todd, John, Ryan, John, and Davey. I appreciate you guys showing up.
Well, thank you.
I think this was a great discussion. I absolutely loved it. And I appreciate all your viewpoints, and I think we hit it out of the park. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
The Buggles.
The Buggles.
Yeah.
No one mentioned the damn Buggles.
First ever video on MTV. That really should be the foundation.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider that. Definitely.
I was going to mention Yes Drama, but
it's my favorite Yes album.
90215.
Beverly Yes 90210.
Yeah. Well, wait, I got a comment. Ernesto, good show. Thank you, Ernesto.
Thank you, Ernesto.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ernesto.
We love all the comments.
And Chris and Phil, everybody.
Everybody
Absolutely.
who's watching, tune in again. We'll have more content, more crap to watch, and to waste your time on. So I want to thank everybody here. Good night. We'll do it again. Yeah. See you, boys.
All
Appreciate
right,
it.
thanks, Grant.
Bye.
Thanks, Grant.